Back when I worked in IT at the University of Oregon, before I started working full-time for the Network Startup Resource Center, I was the director of networking and telecommunications at the University of Oregon, and we actually had the security group in my portfolio. And one of the things that I like to think about as I think about security is it's a process. And you get more and more mature and more sophisticated over time. One of the last things I did, and this was a decade ago, over a decade ago, with the security team, and I want you to comment on how you've taken it from here, is we worked on a data classification policy, trying to describe the types of data that we held and putting them in different classifications so that you could talk about sensitive information, so that you could talk about personal information, and everybody knew what that means. So can you talk a little bit about, from that decade ago, how the security group has matured over time, how it's separated from networking, et cetera. So just to give us a little bit of a history and how it's matured and what you're doing today.
And I'm certainly happy to report that since then we have had really a framework for the security program at the institution, at the University of Oregon. And most of the security programs, one of the key things that it requires a Chief Information Security Officer, a person who is responsible for the security for the institution as a whole. And who is given by the either board of trustee or the president that authority. You have to have a charter. So there's a charter now for the security program at the university, headed by the Chief Information Security Officer. So we took that initiative that you guys had started for the data classification. Now it's called the Data Classification and Management Policy at the university, and classified this data into, we now call them in colors, red asset classification, amber asset classification, and green asset classification. And those are both classified, all of these information assets, so including data and the systems that are classified in that category because of the sensitivity of the information they contain, and also the risk they pose to the institution. So that is included in there for the classification of that data. We were actually talking the other day about chillers, for example. Chiller controls. Those are systems that control, ensure that the data centers are cool. Now, if you think about it, the data center contains very sensitive data. And if it does, then those chillers will be classified not because of the sensitivity, but because of the criticality of those chillers to the institution. Then they will be classified as red classification. And then we have to apply the controls. So we moved on and created the controls. We actually chose minimum controls that we are going to have the institution apply for all this data classification we were talking about here, and then move on to see how do we reduce the risk to the institution for our asset.
Are these IT policies? How do they fit in the university policy framework?
Yes, so these are institutional policy that goes to the university policy library, and they are sanctioned and approved by the Senate and approved by the president. So they really incorporate the mission of the institution at its core, because again, the security office or IT infrastructure does not exist outside the institution, the university. And we are here to really support the institution of the mission and as a strategic partner to further the goals of the institution. So that is very important element.
Very good. Very good.